Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you everyone? I hope you are in a good health and always be happy. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Zahara Fauzia with NPM 211304219. Everyone, do you know who Oliver Wendell Holmes SR is? He is a prominent writer and physician in America. Therefore, on this occasion, I will briefly discuss the biography of Oliver Wendell Holmes SR. Oliver Wendell Holmes SR was born on August 29, 1890 in Cambridge, MA. His father, Abiel Holmes, was a Calvinist minister, author of the seminal History of the Annals of America. His mother, Abiel's second wife, was Sarah Wendell, from a prominent New York family. Oliver Wendell Holmes entered Phillips Andover Academy. He entered Harvard in the famous class of 29. After graduation, he studied law indifferently for a year and dabbled in literature. Then turning to medicine and convinced by a brief experience in Boston that he liked it, he went to Paris in March 1833. He studied diligently under Pierre Carles, Alexander Louis, and other renowned doctors and surgeons in France, and on vacation visited the Low Country, England, Scotland, and Italy. Returning to Boston late in 1835, he won a prize for his professional paper and taught anatomy at Dartmouth College. He wrote 2 papers on homeopathy, also a paper on malarial fever in New England. In 1840, he married Amelia Lee Jackson, daughter of Charles Jackson, who is a judge at the Massachusetts State Supreme Court, who will later influence Dr. Holmes' son, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. The child grew up to become a judge at the United States Supreme Court. Amelia Jackson Holmes, and Edward Jackson Holmes. In 1847, Dr. Holmes was appointed professor of anatomy and physiology at Harvard University Medical School. He delivered lectures on anatomy until November 1882, and in the following years it was his only connection with the medical profession. In later years, he made little contribution to medical knowledge. In 1836, Dr. Holmes, as the Pod Pi Beta Kappa at Harvard University, he published his first volume of poetry, which later made its way into the second edition. Among his earlier lyrics is The Last Leaf, one of the most subtle combinations of pathos and humor in literature. His collection of poems fills 3 volumes, and in 1856 until 57, a Boston publisher, Philip Sampson and Co., invited James Russell Lowell to edit a new magazine, which he agreed on the condition that he could get the help of Dr. Holmes. With this urgent invitation, Dr. Holmes was both surprised and flattered, for until now he had stood somewhat outside the literary communities of Cambridge and Boston. He received it gladly and immediately jumped into the company with enthusiasm. He called it the Atlantic Monthly, and as Mr. Howells later said, he not only named it but created it. For in each number of its first volume appears one of the prose of the autocrat of the breakfast table. His most famous poetic work is the Breakfast Table series, which was started by the prose, the autocrat of the breakfast table. The opening of the autocrat, I was just about to say when I was interrupted, is explained by the fact that in the old New England magazine, 1831 to 1833, Dr. Holmes has published 2 papers on autocrat. Dr. Holmes created The Atlantic Monthly then made his success so fast and extraordinary that it lasted the rest of his career. He quit being a doctor and became a writer. Dr. Holmes had ambitions for more sustainable work, and in 1861 his novel Elsevier, originally called The Professor's Story, was published. The entire book is illuminated by stunning images of the characters and society in a typical New England town. For generations, Dr. Holmes is a theologian. No other topic captivated him more than the firm and miraculous dogmas of his Calvinist forefathers. The religious world of his time was still largely until the control of all ideas for which he was attacked as a freethinker and a subvert of Christianity, although before his death his opinion had changed so much that the bitterness of an attack against him seemed overwhelming, even to some of those who carried it out the hardest. Nonetheless, undaunted and utterly earnest, he returned 6 years later to the same line of thought in his second novel, Guardian Angel, which published in 1867. Although this novel is less famous than Elsie Venner, it is much more good in terms of goodness. No more vivid and captivating images of rural New England town society in the mid-19th century have ever been drawn. In 1887, Dr. Holmes wrote a memoir of historian John Lothrop Motley, an affectionate tribute to one who was once his best friend. In 1884, he contributed the life of Ralph Waldo Emerson to the American Men of Letters series. In 1888, in, eight- sorry, in 1888, he started a newspaper which he happily called Over the Teacups. As a tour de force of a nearly 80-year-old man, they were nothing short of extraordinary. Okay, after returning from Paris in 1835, Dr. Holmes lived in Boston with summer stops at Pittsfield and Beverly Farms and occasional trips to neighboring towns until 1886. He then traveled for 4 months in Europe and in England and conducted a sort of victorious advance. On his return, he wrote Our 100 Days in Europe, which published in 1887, a polite acknowledgement of the hospitality and compliments he had been given. And finally, he died on October 7, 1894, and was buried in King's Chapel, Boston, in Mount Auburn Cemetery. Okay, maybe that's all I can say. Hopefully, we can all be motivated to always develop ourselves to be better from history. And of course, I hope this story can be useful for everyone in terms of goodness. Don't forget to always take care of everyone's health. I hope we can meet again next time. Have a nice day and keep smiling. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.